to value patience, and that being patient is going to override other aspects of my weekend. So after last week, I invited anybody who wanted to share about that to send me an email. And Meg is awesome. And she wrote this about an experience that she had a bit ago. And I think it's really pertinent to our conversation last week. And then I'm going to quickly review. Kayla wasn't here. And also we kind of went through those beginning fear fixes. So we'll review them again quickly before we get into the new ones. But in our discussion of fear last week, many things resonated with me. One thing in particular reminded me of a very significant fear incident I had a few years ago. I was at a 4-day show at the Virginia Horse Center, which is a bigger atmosphere than our usual shows. Although we had been there once before, my horse was extremely tense in the warm-up the first day. He was not himself at all. I couldn't get him to move, and he felt like he was going to explode. And I agree with Meg that that's literally the worst feeling, is when the horse is so frozen, but you know when he moves, it's not going to be what you want. I had the earphones in my ears, and my trainer was trying to talk me through it, but he shut down, and then I shut down, and I told her I had to get off. I was hugely embarrassed to admit this to her and devastated because I felt the whole weekend was a wash. She came over and very kindly said, "Let me get on him." Without anger or force, she rode him through it, and it took a really long time. In the end, I nervously got on for just a minute, but he was fine. Of course, I'd missed or scratched my class for that day, but the next day I was afraid to go to the warm-up. But I did get on, and he was his usual self, and we had a great weekend showing. If it hadn't been for my trainer, I would have been overwhelmed and defeated. I'm not a quitter, but I would have probably gone home because I was overcome with fear. But she completely turned it around for me, and instead I felt overwhelmingly grateful. She said then what you said last week. She does this every day. It's what she does for a living. She didn't judge me. She helped me to do something she's good at. Meanwhile, everyone that sees Getty thinks he's so calm and sweet. She likes to tell this story as the one day that he wasn't. So I really appreciate Meg for talking about that with us, for sharing that story, because I think we've all been in that situation where we really felt overwhelmed. And it's that first thing about, talk about it. We have to talk about it. If we don't share it, then we are defining that moment as being closed instead of open. And each moment has millions of possibilities in it. And by asking for help, we can change the direction. So I really appreciate it, Meg, for bringing that up. Now I can't. There you guys are. All right, here we go. I lost you for a minute. All right. So thank you. Thank you very much, Meg. And hopefully Meg will inspire us to share together more often. And there was one. So let's go through quickly the beginning from last week. Fear definition: a distressing emotion aroused by impending danger, evil, pain, whether the threat is real or imagined. The feeling or condition of being afraid, to feel apprehensive or uneasy. And overcome, because that's what we're talking about tonight, is to prevail over, which already left me a little bit lost still. It wasn't the definition I was looking for. And that's awesome, Crystal. Thank you. So Prevail brought to me more what I wanted to bring out in the conversation tonight, which is to use persuasion or inducement successfully. So fear of what are we talking about tonight? Being out of control, falling off, making mistakes, looking stupid, or simply not knowing. That idea that we think we need to know everything, and then that people are going to judge us because we don't know something. And so this is so fun because fix number 1 is exactly what Meg was talking about, which is talk about it. So when we have fear and we can share it with somebody that is going to talk us through it, help us through it, let us feel accepted that we have it, I think that's a really good place to start. Now, these are not in any order. This is just random how I wrote these down. But talk about it, I think, just jumped out to be the first one. Fix number 2 is to learn awareness. So we talked about that last week, that to practice being aware, quietly and softly aware of your surroundings and not get fixated on just one thing. Fix number 3, get out of your head. Again, we need to be open, not closed. It's interesting. I talked a little bit about how people will say that if you are thinking it, you're going to make it happen. And so that can be in a positive way or a negative way. And so we did talk about last week that sometimes I will be aware of the surroundings. I might see something going on in the warm up. My mind might go to the possible things that could go wrong, that horse that's being very rambunctious in the warm up could possibly upset my horse, and I might have a little bit of a thing go around in my head about it, or the water truck coming, or it's windy and the flags are going. But then I will analyze it. I will decide to connect more with my horse, to ask my horse more questions. And then I'll also say that thing that I see in my head, like I see the possibility that horse might spook my horse, or I see that possibility that my horse might be distracted by the flags. But then I also say to myself, that's not my story. That's not what's happening today. That's not what I see for my test today. And then I will override that negative image with something that I've been practicing all week coming toward the show, or something that I need to come up with on the spot that is much better than the scenario of my horse being spooked or incapable of going through the test. So get out of your head in the bad, in those bad scenarios, those worries that run around. We're going to get out of our head. Fix number 4, remember, it is the journey, not the destination. The second you focus too much on the outcome, everything else goes downhill. And you remember when Meg was talking about her story, how one of the first things that was coming into her mind, which had to jump down, and she felt really defeated, she also was immediately thinking about how the whole weekend is ruined. Now my whole weekend is ruined. You just jump, instead of taking those small steps, what can I do in this moment? Here's my trainer going to help me. Maybe we could even bring the horse out a second time that day, or there are just so many things. But the second you jump to I'm not going to be able to qualify, this whole show is going to be a disaster, I'll never be able to show again, my horse is I thought my horse was one way and now look what it is. This is it stops you from thinking about how to bring the situation into a positive way. So when you think more about the journey This is a day in my journey, a day in my life on my way to my goals, then things don't add up. They do not become overwhelming. And it's much easier to find those little answers that you need just to deal with only that situation. We only need to deal with that situation. We don't need to worry about what's happening tomorrow or the next day. And so the second you start to focus too much on the destination, that's going to prevent you from solving the problems that are right in front of you, that are present right in front of you. And we remember that that's why horses are so awesome for us, is they keep us in the present. They are in the present. They're not thinking about the mistakes they made last week, and they're not thinking about that big show that you're trying to prepare them for in a couple weeks from now or a couple months from now. So that's why we love horses. That's why they're so good for us. And we need to stay in the present and enjoy every step of that journey. Sometimes we're going to have to work harder on the journey, and sometimes things are going to flow a little bit easier, but don't get fixated on the outcome. Fix number 5, know your current driving values. Make all decisions based on these, and then never look back. So it's going to happen sometimes that our values are going to change, or we're going to choose certain values on purpose for a certain situation. There's Olivia in where is it? State of Emergency, Orlando. She left the Palm Beach area to go to the State of Emergency, Orlando. But you look good. I'm glad you're here.
All right. Everything's good. Wait, how are you guys doing though?
We're doing good so far.
Are you still in Florida or?
Yeah. I'm supposed to go to Tampa, but I'm gonna wait and make sure the horses are good before I head out.
Yeah.
All right. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Okay, so your values, sometimes I might pick a theme for a show that I really want to value patience, and that being patient is going to override other aspects of my weekend, because I really want to work on that for myself. And so what might happen? My horse might not be as forward. It might not be as tuned in to me. Hopefully it will be just as tuned in, but it won't cause me to be as reactive if he gets distracted or something like that. Somebody might judge me for being patient. Somebody might judge me for not being competitive. I might be bummed out at myself. I could have, ridden a little stronger here. I could have done a little something more there, but I chose to value patience and work on my patience for that weekend. I want to have success with that. I'm going to be happy with that. And I'm not going to look back and think about the situations that I could have dealt with differently, because I would be coming from a different value system. Okay. So when you pick you have your certain current values that are driving you, get into them, breathe them, live them, feel them, and operate from them. And don't worry about what other people think. And don't look back and berate yourself because you made a decision to operate with those values. Now, I think why we might get upset with ourselves sometimes is that we don't set intentions. And then we become reactive instead of being able to step out and do things on purpose. We end up just responding and reacting on other people, on the situations, and just kind of bouncing around. We talked about, bouncing around because of other people's emotions. We're bouncing around because of the people around us, or the way that the horses are making our horse feel. So if you pick values, that's going to help you to set an intention, and you're going to be much more proactive in the outcome. Fix number 6 is to train your horse to the basic aids. Do not get on if you don't have your horse's 100% of your horse's attention. So for me, my horses need to stop when I say stop, turn when I say turn, go when I say go. These basic things have to be installed every day. If sometimes the neck is a little bit in the wrong place, or something is a little bit mixed up, I need to remind my horse about those things. I'm not going to worry about being judged because my horse comes a little bit above the bit, because it's not listening, because it's running along. No. Dressage is about training. It's about our horses listening to us. It's about us being safe. So we want to train the horse to the basic aids every single day. We're going to have to remind them about that. Fix number 7, learn about your own body and its reaction to fear, independent of riding. So we talked about that. Other times that we can work on this, when we're driving the car, or reactions that we might have to things that are happening in our daily life, and how do we manifest that in our bodies? Do we get tense in the shoulders? Are we tightening our arms, our fists when we're driving the car? Are we gripping the steering wheel? Things like this that you can start to work through on a daily basis, independent from your riding. If it's a habit, then you're going to do it when you're riding by accident. Your body's going to respond without permission. So just start tuning in and being aware of how your body normally responds when things don't go exactly how you plan, when you have surprises. Fix number 8. When necessary, let your trainer warm up your horse. Do not feel bad. Do not feel inferior. This is our job, and we cannot do what you do for a living, and we have zero guilt over that. So just what Meg was saying, she had this situation. She was feeling really bad. She did not have control of her horse. She did not have her horse focused on her. And she was able to express that to her trainer, and her trainer was kind enough to get on and change that situation for her and have a good outcome. So don't feel bad about that. And sometimes maybe even plan on it. Maybe even plan on that, so that you don't have to have the bad experience first. If it's a new time that you're going away, or a new venue or a bigger venue, and you think that your horse might be stressed, plan ahead how you're going to deal with that together with your trainer. And then, of course, we can plan. Things might not go exactly how we want them to, and then we're going to have to be flexible and adjust depending on what our horses need. Okay, so fix number 9. This is something that we have really talked about a lot, and I love it, and it's about energy. Learn how to ramp up your energy independent of emotion. Being relaxed is not good enough. If you do not have your horse's attention, so sometimes the horses can get distracted by the outside loud noise. And we are taught if we're relaxed, our horse is going to be relaxed. But I don't share this opinion. I do think that it's helpful for us to be aware and to be in control of our emotions. But I also believe we have to bring our energy up to their level. If they are escalating, our energy needs to escalate too. It doesn't need to escalate with anger or frustration, but sometimes that's in the beginning how we find out that we have that energy available to us. So you're going to learn how to escalate your energy when necessary and then bring it right back down. It takes practice, but you can create your own state. So I always tell the story about one of my trainers who I try to work at being relaxed in the shows. I don't like to come toward my horse with a lot of tension and a lot of aggression. Something I've always worked at is trying to be relaxed and just ride the best I can, as close to the way that I ride at home. And my trainer thought that didn't always bring enough competitiveness to my tests. And so he would aggravate the crap out of me before I would get on, so that I was a little bit more animated and brought a little bit more energy to the program. And it was a while later that I realized that, yeah, that energy is really fun to access, but I don't need to access it through frustration or irritation or anger. And I don't even know that he knew that he was really doing it, maybe unconsciously creating that situation. But I try to cultivate energy in a different way. I will say that when I've had horses that ramp up, I've had to learn to ramp my energy up, to nip that in the bud, to be more important than the other things that are out there that are gaining their attention. And then as soon as I've got them back with me, then I can channel that energy into what I want to turn it into. But it takes practice. This takes practice. And just knowing that it's possible is already an awesome step in the right direction. So just being quiet and relaxed is not going to be enough. You've got to gain the interest of your horse to pay attention to you. And you're going to do that with energy. Okay? Stop me if you have any questions. Fix number 10. Understand that pressure gets more pressure. This one is for Dana. Look for the give. Teach your horse to look for the give. You need to let the steam out of the pot. If you close the lid too tight, it will boil over. So when I'm training the horses, I always teach them to look for the give. When they find the give, they know that they've given me the right answer. And then next time they're going to try to do that again. So if you are asking the horse to go forward and you put your leg on and the horse doesn't go forward, you need to create pressure. Doesn't necessarily have to be more. It has to stay, or maybe I need a little tap with the whip to get that forward reaction. But as soon as the horse is going forward, I'm going to relax my leg right away, as soon as I feel it happening. And that's how the horses learn. Their instinct is to push against. Their instinct is not to give. The give is what we teach them. Okay? So if we don't give instantly when they give us the right reaction, then they're not going to learn it. So we want to bring them as quickly as we can to that yes, and then reward them right away. part of the reward is going to be that we give. We take the leg off if it's a forward aid. We relax the hands if it's a waiting aid. And then we teach the horse to stay between those aids on their own. They can stand up and they can hold themselves in that frame, in that tempo, in that length of stride on their own. We're going to have connection, but we're not going to have pressure. So a little bit of pressure gets a reaction, but a long-term pressure is going to get the wrong result. It's going to get the opposite of what you want. Okay? Pressure gets more pressure. So you're always looking for the give. How quickly can I get my horse to say yes so that I can reward, so they try to do that again? So what happens when we get into a situation where our horse has more energy, maybe like a horse show or a new place, and then we try to overmanage everything, and the horse gets uncomfortable with that, okay? So when the horse is not in control of its own legs, they feel stressed and uncomfortable. We control the legs with the reins, with our legs, and with our seat. They must not think of any of these aids as if they are balance. Okay? So when they think of our hands as balance, or they use our hands as balance, or they use our seat as balance, or they use our legs as balance, even though they might be the ones starting it, they will become uncomfortable. They don't like the pressure, and they don't like not being in control of their legs. So we really want to pay attention. When we have a horse that has a lot of energy and is starting to lean on us, and we feel like we can't let go because they're going to run off, then we just need to do more transitions. Lots of transitions, lots of turns, lots of things that are going to keep their attention on us so that we can find that place of give. We can find that reward. We can relax the reins and keep looking that the horse is balanced on its own. Okay? So each horse and rider combination is going to have a little bit different feeling of what's comfortable and what feels like working paces. But you want to always know that if you give, everything is not going to fall apart. If it's feeling like you are responsible for everything, you may be making the right picture. Your trainer might say it looks good, but you're not quite there. If you and the horse can't be independent from each other, if they can't hear your aids because your aids have become balancing aids, okay? So let me know if that's making sense, because that for me is a really important to fear, because that fear of letting go is making your horse more nervous. That fear of your horse not listening to you is creating more fear. There's no reason why we shouldn't be nervous if our horses aren't listening to us. In that moment when they're not listening, we have to gain their control. We have to gain their attention. And in gaining their attention, then we are going to be able to be more relaxed. A clothespin. Yes, I just can picture that so well. Exactly. But when you start to just say stop and go, because the go means your legs have to come on and off. You like the reins, the stop means you have to use your reins, you have to let go, right? So just make more transitions. Don't try to hold the pressure in the pot. Don't try. We have to let the steam out. They have to. For me, I think that I'm telling my horse, you can go if you want, but you don't need to. And that really makes a big difference for the horse's instincts, because their instinct is that flight or freeze. So Meg experienced the freeze part, but she knew that the flight part was right on the other side of it. That flight part is going to happen the more we try to hold the energy in. So I'm not saying that you run around with the reins loose, but you stop and you go, and you stop and you go, knowing that when you use your rein to stop, that your horse is going to stop, starts to give you confidence that it's okay to go forward a little bit, right? So you just ask questions. As in the beginning, you have to ask questions and get those transitions done. Later, I'm doing it all the time, but you might not even see it because the trot stays the same. But I'm just saying, what if I wanted to go a little slower? Oh, I feel it in the horse. The horse says, yes, I can go slower. I say, never mind, you don't need to. What if I want to go a little more forward? I say, what if? My legs say, what if? My horse says, oh, yeah, I can go more forward. Okay, never mind, you don't need to. It's enough. And we have this little conversation going all the time. That helps me to build relaxation. But if I say, what if I want to walk? And the horse says, oh, no, I'm not walking. We are going. Then I have to walk. I have to make the small circle. I have to make the turn. I have to make the walk happen. I have to say it. We're walking now. Never mind. And then as soon as they walk, I reward, give, patting, go to whatever it is to release the tension, push the hand forward, and then add the leg. If the horse is going forward because I'm asking for it, it's not scary. It's only scary when the horse is doing all this stuff without permission, right? So pressure gets more pressure. Fix number 11. It is not necessary to keep up appearances. Sometimes our horses are on our aids and everything looks effortless. Other times, we need to be heard. Other times, we need to say things louder. And if you are worried more about what the people think of you on the sidelines, if you allow your brain and your attention to be thinking about that even just a little bit, then you're not connected with your horse. So this is, for me, one of the biggest things that we need to practice, because it's very hard not to put a certain amount of your focus on what people are thinking, especially if you're going to a horse show, right? We're going to a horse show. We're paying to be judged. We're putting ourselves out there in front of everyone, and we want to do well. And it matters what people think. So how do you ride and keep connected and communicating with your horse and confident that you're doing well enough with your horse without worrying about what other people think? This takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of practice, but this is going to make your experience so much more fun. And you can think about what other people are thinking of you and worry about it and get a good score or a bad score. Or you cannot think about what other people are thinking of you and not worry about it even slightly and get a good score or a bad score, right? It's not going to affect your score. The connection with your horse is going to affect your score. Ultimately, it's very easy to say that, but if you really think about it, how much is worrying about what the people on the sidelines are thinking of you benefiting your riding? We've talked in the past about having that aspect of our ego that helps us and that we want to utilize. So there's an aspect of us that wants to be proud, and that part is going to help us to take better care of ourselves. It's going to help us to present ourselves in a more professional and organized way. And I like that aspect of the ego. I think it really does. That idea that you think well enough of yourself to take yourself out into public, well taken care of, I think is really a positive thing. But to take care of yourself or to present yourself in a certain way only for other people, just because of what they think, I don't believe that that's a healthy aspect of the ego. So when we are making that connection with our horse, it's because that's the most important thing to us. We're riding dressage. You ride day after day, lesson after lesson, hour after hour, looking for those minutes when you're operating together with your horse in a unit, right? We work so hard to create that wonderful feeling. You don't want other people interfering with that. They don't have that feeling when you are having it. You are having it. Your horse is having it. You know it's going well. Now, from the sidelines, it's going to look beautiful because you're in unison, because things are flowing, because your horse is understanding you. So it's just going to be wonderful. And the people on the sidelines are going to love that. But they're not loving it because you're worried about what they're thinking. This is different. So when you value the relationship with the horse and the connection with the horse, and the horse listens to you, then already people are going to think you look magnificent. But when you're only worried about what they're thinking, you're not going to be connecting with your horse. You're not going to be making your aids on time. You're not going to be telling your horse ahead of time that it needs to turn here, or it needs to be more balanced, or it needs to be listening to you, because part of your brain is going to be somewhere else. And that is not going to bring you success. Okay? So for me, that is fear. Fear of not being good enough. The fear of not looking good enough. The fear of looking like you don't know what you're doing. How are we going to fix that? Is by riding our horses, connecting with our horses, thinking about that most of all, and not keeping up appearances. Okay? Any questions? I hope you guys can hear me. All right. Good. All right. So it's very funny that I picked 13. 13 is like my favorite number, but sometimes people don't like it. All right. Fix number 12. Say what you need to say to your trainer, to your horse. Communication is important. So we started with talk about it as fix number 1. For me, this is just a little bit different, where in the moment that you need to tell your horse something, that you feel that freedom to say, you need to listen to me right now. Say what you need to say. And that's hopefully bringing less stress than talk about your fear. So this is simply, I need you to stop right now. I need you to turn right now. I need my I need to tell my trainer I'm nervous, or I need to tell my trainer that my horse doesn't feel as good as it looks. I can't feel my legs. Say what you need to say. And that's not, doesn't need to be a big fear conversation. Talk about your fear. That's one thing. Say what you need to say is simply something in the moment where you are relaxed enough in who you are and what you're all about to say, this is going on for me right now. My horse is not stopping when I tell it to. My horse needs to know to stop. My trainer needs to know it's not stopping. Okay. So just, and I always think for me, sometimes I'm not doing this. And so my mantra will be, if I get worried about it, is that John Mayer song that's just like, say what you need to say. And I just sing that to myself whenever I feel like I'm for whatever reason I get frozen up. So, you know, whatever you need for yourself to remind you about these things, just give yourself your own little cues and clues and write it on your hand, on the put it on your mirror, whatever you need to, but don't forget, say what you need to say. So fix number 13. And you have all heard me say this before. Where you are in your riding, no matter where you are, apply the aids the best you can and expect your horse to do what you want. Do this with confidence and awareness of how your horse does respond. If you don't think your horse will do what you want, he will not do it. She will not do it. Because you're not, when you're already thinking it's not going to happen, you're also only giving the aid at half power. When you know your horse is going to give in the right answer, you're getting to the point. No matter how perfect you are, if in your mind you don't think it's going to happen, it's not going to happen. Your hands, your legs, and your seat, they all have a skill set. Work on that skill set. Make yourself better. But don't try to negotiate aids and don't try to make your horse happy. In stressful situations, your horse is uncomfortable. It's already unhappy. The second it starts listening to you and you get it into a state of feeling its legs, being confident with its feet, being confident in its answers to you, it's going to be happier again. You don't want to worry about not looking like you know what you're doing. Build up your skills. This will boost your confidence. However, at this moment, the way you use the reins is good enough. The way you use your legs, it's good enough. Your seat is good enough. And if it's really not good enough, then you don't have the right horse, right? But if you're doubting yourself from the time you get in the saddle, nothing's going to work. So if every day you say to yourself, the way that I use my reins, my horse can understand me, your horse is going to start understanding you. And because it understands you, you're actually going to get better at it. But you can't ride thinking that it's not going to work, not applying your aids. Just apply it the way you think it's supposed to be. We're going to help you. Your trainer's going to help you to be a little bit better, to build the skills. But we wouldn't be letting you get on if you weren't good enough to affect your horse right now the way you are. So we have to get on, and we have to do that. We have to believe that we can stop, we can turn, we can go. And through that, we can make more things happen. Don't ride with doubt. Where you ride right now is good enough to affect your horse. Your horse can hear you. Know that. And when you know that, I think it will take a lot of fear away, because you're going to apply yourself to the aids, to telling your horse what you want. And that you're taking action instead of wrapping yourself up in your head. Okay? So for me, that's a really important one. So does anybody have any questions? This is there's many more, of course, just a fun list of mindset strategies, and there's no order to the list. You use what works for you. And if I were to give you homework, I would love it if you can think about your particular situation and put them in order that best suits your present situation. What order would you use these in? And what that would help you to focus on things. Where would you put your focus first in this list that we're talking about? And you can email it to me, or you can bring it to next week, whatever you would like.